Hello, good morning everyone. My name is Erwin Lensipatatag from BSCE 2B. Now, I discuss to you my topic which is the morality and the norm of morality. Okay, so morality, the principle and values that guide human behavior and determine what is right and wrong. It is a fundamental aspect of human society and plays a crucial role in shaping individual and collective actions. And so, morality is the concept of distinguishing right from wrong in our actions and decisions. It enables us to determine what should do and should not be done. Morality stems from our beliefs, values, laws that establish standards of behavior. Through morality, we are guided to make decisions and act based on principle of integrity, conscience, and equality. And also, morality is important because it provides a framework for our well-functions and just society. It sets laws and regulations, maintains harmony in human relationships, and teaches proper conduct through morality. Exploitations, violence, and other unjust actions are avoided. Ultimately, morality aims to promote good and rational behavior in ourselves and others. It is guide that enable us to responsible and accountable for our actions and decisions, and to work together to create society and respect justice and unity. Okay, next is norm of morality. Norm of morality, right and wrong, good or bad, high or low, just and unjust, presuppose a basis or a standard criterion, test, rule, principle, or law by which one is distinguished from the other. In the case of human action, this basis of distinctions between right and wrong is called norm of morality. By norm of morality, we mean therefore the first is the standard of right and wrong in human acts, and the second is the reason why certain acts are morally right and why certain actions are wrong. And furthermore, the norm of morality refers to the commonly accepted standard or principle of behavior that guide individuals and societies in determining what is right and wrong, or good or bad. These norms are influenced by various factors such as cultural, religious, and ethical and beliefs. And addition, the norm of morality helps to establish a sense of order and harmony within a community or society. It provides framework for individuals to make decisions and engage in actions that are considered morally acceptable. These norms often promote values such as honesty, fairness, compassion, and respect for others. Okay, so next is the example of morality para mas maintindihan natin. Imagine you come across a wallet laying on the ground. Inside the wallet, you find a significant amount of money along with the identification cards, and you have two options. Ang first option mo is keep the money for yourself, and the second option mo is make an effort to return the wallet to its owner. Okay, so dito may dalawang kang options or dalawang nasa isip mo na gagawin mo sa na option. Kung ito first option mo, if yung wallet is kukunin mo ba, or kukunin mo yung wallet na kahit may ID ng may-ari. Pangalawang option mo is ibabalik mo siya, na which is pagbalik mo sa may-ari is may value siya ng good. Then yung first option mo is may value siya ng bad. Diyan papasok yung morality. Okay. So, other important information about morality. So first is um, subjective of morality. Morality can be subjective, meaning that different individuals or culture may have varying morals, beliefs, and values. What is considered morally acceptable in one society may be viewed or differently in another. The subjective nature of morality means that moral judgment and principle can vary from person to person based on individual perspective and beliefs. Um, for example, one person may believe that eating meat is morally wrong due to a concern about animal welfare, while another person may see it as a morally acceptable based culture or personal beliefs. Second is moral dilemmas. Morality often involves navigating complex situations where there may be conflicting moral principles or values. A moral dilemma is a situation where a person is faced with two or more conflicting moral choices, making it difficult to determine right course of actions. For example, deciding whether to tell the truth and potentially hurt someone's feelings or lie to protect them presence or moral dilemma. Third is moral development. Morality is not fixed and can evolve over time. Moral development refers to the process of acquiring and refining moral values and beliefs throughout our lives. Moral development refers to the process of acquiring and internalizing moral values, beliefs, and principles. For example, a child moral development may involve learning to share toys and show empathy towards others. Next is moral responsibility. With the morality comes moral responsibility. We are responsible for our actions and their consequence, and we should strive to act in ways to align with our moral values. Moral responsibility is refers to obligation individuals have to act in accordance with ethical principles and be held accountable for their actions. For example, if someone witnesses the crime and has ability to intervene but chooses not to, they may be considered morally responsible for their inactions. Next is moral relativism versus moral absolutism. They are different philosophical perspective on morality. Moral relativism suggests that moral judgments are relative to individual or cultural beliefs, while moral absolutism asserts that there are objective moral truths that apply universally. Moral relativism is the belief that moral judgments are subjective and vary based on individual or cultural perspective, while moral absolutism posits there are objective universal moral principles that apply to all situations and individuals. For example, in moral relativism, stealing may be considered acceptable in certain circumstances, whereas in moral absolutism, stealing is always considered morally wrong regardless of the context. Next is moral courage. Acting in accordance with one moral values often requires courage, especially in situation where it may be challenging or unpopular. Moral courage is the willingness to stand up for what is right even in the face of opposition or adversity. Example of moral courage include the speaking out against injustice, defending the rights of others, and refusing the participant in unethical actions.
So good day sa lahat, no? I am Kalikaran Arnel. My report is all about human acts and voluntariness and responsibility. So what is human acts? Human act in ethics deal with the study of man and particularly with his actions. But not every act which proceeds from man is a human act as used and understood in ethics. So, in etika daw, human acts naglarawan sa pag-aaral ng tao at lalo na sa kanyang mga kilos. Pero, hindi lahat ng kilos ay nagmumula sa tao ay tinatawag na human act. So, here's are the factors of human act in ethics. Number 1, the pre-voluntary acts of man. O yung mga voluntaryo, ibig sabihin nito yung mga voluntaryo o kusa na gawain ng tao. Number 2, acts done with knowledge and consent. Yung mga gawain na ginagawa ng may kaalaman at pahintulot. Number 3, acts which are proper to man as man because of all animals he alone has knowledge and freedom of will. So dito sa number 3, mga gawain na angkop sa tao bilang tao. Ibig sabihin nito ay tao lamang ang makakagawa ng mga kaalaman at ng may kaalaman at kalayaan ng loob. Number 4, acts which we are conscious are under our control and for which we are responsible. So mga gawain na may kamalayan, kontrolado at responsable. Number 5, human acts are those of which man is master, which he has the power of doing or nothing doing as he pleases. So dito ay ang mga gawain ng tao na kung saan tao mismo ang may kakayahan na gawin o hindi gawin yung kanyang mga nais. To be truly human, action must be done knowingly and willingly. Only action done with awareness and consent are considered truly human. So sabi dito, na tanging mga kilos na ginagawa ng may kamalayan at pentulot ang itinuturing na tunay na makatao. Actions that are not done with knowledge and consent, such as natural event or involuntary bodily functions, do not have moral significance. So, ibig sabihin nito, mga kilos na hindi ginagawa ng may kaalaman at pentulot, tulad ng mga natural na pangyayari, mga hindi kontroladong pagkilos ng katawan, ay hindi nagtataglay ng moral na kahalagan. Halimbawa nito ay ang paghinga, yung mga blood circulations, at mga bahagi ng katawan na kung saan walang involuntary na naganap. Next is the voluntariness and responsibility. The fundamental concepts of ethics, example ethics, morality, human acts, responsibility, reward or punishment, are intimately related to each other. All these concepts presuppose freedom of choice in man or voluntariness. Number 1, relation between voluntariness and ethics. Ethics studies human acts, and human acts to be human must be voluntary. So, sabi ito na upang maging tunay na tao ang isang kilos, kailangan gawin ito ng kusang loob. Number 2, between morality and voluntariness. Only voluntary acts have a moral bearing. It is absurd and silly to speak of the morality of dogs, stones, horse, etc. Precisely because these do not have the freedom of choice in their actions. So number 2, ang moralidad ay kaugnay lamang ng mga gawaing ginagawa ng may kusang loob. Hindi katulad ng mga hayop, mga bagay na kung saan walang kamalayan o kusang loob, sa mga gawain ay walang kaugnayan sa moralidad. Number 3, human act and voluntariness. We have shown that human acts are the free acts of man. Number 4, responsibility and voluntariness. There can be responsibility only if there is knowledge and consent, and consent means voluntariness. Number 5, punishment. It is absurd and most cruel to punish anyone who acted because of pure necessity, for doing what he could not do otherwise, unless there is voluntariness. There can be no responsibility, and without responsibility, punishment is meaningless. So dito na magkaroon lamang ng punishment kapag voluntaryo ang tao na gumawa sa isang gawain. Kapag siya yung responsable sa isang gawain. So halimbawa nito kapag inutusan ka na magnakaw ng pagkain kahit hindi mo gusto. Tapos may consequence nun. So dahil may consequence, kailangan mo itong gawain. So, mangyayari dito, hindi ka dapat parusahan kasi wala kang ibang choice kundi gawin ang inutos sa'yo. Yun lang po.
Hence, the notion of voluntariness is most basic and inseparable from ethics. Yes, indeed, the notion of voluntariness is inseparable from ethics. It underpins the idea that ethical actions must stem from genuine choice and personal agency. Without voluntariness, ethical decision making loses its moral significance, as actions performed under coercions or without true consent may not reflect the individual's moral character or intentions. Therefore, voluntariness serves as a foundational principle in ethical philosophy, guiding how we understand and evaluate the morality of human actions.
Further study on voluntariness. The concept of voluntariness plays a crucial role in various aspects of human life, including ethics, law, psychology, and sociology. Understanding what motivates individuals to engage in voluntary actions and the implications of these decisions is essential for creating a harmonious and ethical society. Further study on voluntariness delves into the complex interplay of internal and external factors that influence an individual's decision-making process. One area of interest in the study of voluntariness is the impact of social influences on voluntary actions. Research has shown that individuals may feel pressured to act in a certain way due to societal norms, peer pressure, or authority figures. Exploring how these external factors shape an individual's perception of voluntariness can provide valuable insights in the dynamics of human behavior and decision-making. Moreover, delivering deeper into the neurological and psychological mechanism underlying voluntariness can shed light on the cognitive processes involved in making voluntary choices. By studying brain activities, cognitive biases, and decision-making strategies, research can gain more nuanced understanding of how individuals weigh options, assess consequences, and ultimately make voluntary decisions. This multidisciplinary approach to studying voluntariness can offer valuable insights into human nature, ethics, and intricacies of free will.
Good morning everyone, my name is Samin Naif Dinalon. So for today I will be talking about the moral principle involving action of having two effects. So this principle aims to provide specific guidelines for determining when it is morally permissible to perform an action in pursuit of a good and in full knowledge that the actions will also bring out a bad result. So the action itself must be morally good or neutral, and the intention behind the action must be to achieve the good effect and not the bad effect. The good effect must be proportional to the bad effect. There should be no way other to achieve the good effect without the causing of the bad effect. So in examples, in medical ethics, the principle of double effect might be invoked in cases where administering a pain-relieving drug to terminally ill patients may hasten their death as a side effect. If the primary intention is to relieve pain and suffering rather than to cause harm, and if there are no alternative ways to alleviate the pain, then action may be morally justified according to this principle. Understanding the applying of the principle of double effect requires carefully consideration of the intention behind the action and the balance. So between the good and bad consequences, it's a fascinating topic that sparks a lot of debate and discussions in ethical philosophy.
Factors that lessens accountability. Factors that lessens accountability can have detrimental effects on individuals, organizations, and society as a whole. One significant factor is the lack of transparency. When information is not readily available or is deliberately withheld, it becomes challenging to hold individuals or entities accountable for their actions. This lack of transparency can lead to a culture secrecy and impunity, where wrongdoings go unnoticed and unaddressed. Another factor that lessens accountability is the presence of power imbalance. When there is significant power differential between individuals or group, those in positions of power may escape accountability by exploiting their authority by influencing decision-making processes in their favor. This can create a sense of injustice and erode trust in institutions meant to uphold accountability. Additionally, lack of clear policies and procedures can contribute to a decrease in accountability. Without established guidelines for ethical behavior and consequences for misconduct, individuals may not feel compelled to act accountability. Ambiguity in roles and responsibilities can also lead to confusion about who should be held responsible for certain actions or decisions, further diminishing overall accountability within an organization or society. In conclusion, addressing factors that lessen accountability is crucial for promoting integrity, trust, and responsibility in all aspects of life. By fostering transparency, addressing power imbalances, individuals, and establishing clear policies and procedures, individuals and organizations can work towards culture of accountability that benefits everyone.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh, and good day everyone. My name is Obidullah Ekanakan, and I'm gonna be tackle about the concupiscence and fear and violence. So concupiscence, technically called passions, affect the voluntariness of an action. For a man, acting under the influence of a passion would not be acting perfectly of his own free volition. A man in a fit of anger, for instance, is liable to do acts which otherwise he would not do in his right senses. Concupiscence, in other words, refers to the inclination or desire for something that is morally wrong or excessive. It often relates to the strong desires for sexual pleasure or material goods that can lead individuals to act against their better judgment or moral principles. Many ethical frameworks overcoming concupiscence is seen as a virtue, promoting self-control and adherence to ethical norms. The principles. These principles associated with overcoming concupiscence typically revolved around cultivating self-discipline, moderation, and moral integrity. These principles can include self-awareness, self-control, virtue ethics, ethical reflection, spiritual practice, social support, and these principles aim to empower individuals to resist the allure of concupiscence and make choices that are morally upright and beneficial to themselves and others. The next one is fear and violence. So, what is fear? Fear is a fundamental human emotion triggered by the perception of danger, threat, or uncertainty. It serves as a natural survival mechanism, preparing the body to respond to perceived threats with a fight, flight, or freeze response. Typically, fear can be both necessary instinct for self-preservation and a barrier to personal growth and societal progress. Violence refers to the use of physical force or power, often with the intent to cause harm, injury, or damage to individuals, communities, or property. Fear and violence often intertwined, as violence can steal fear in individuals or communities, and fear can sometimes lead to acts or violence as a means of self-protection or control. Fear can also be result of experiencing violence or the threat of violence. Addressing both fear and violence often requires comprehensive approaches that focus on prevention, intervention, and support for victims. The moral principles. First is when we act because of fear, our will is dragged along, so to say, and so it freedom is restricted, and our responsibility is to diminish correspondingly. Great fear sometimes exempts a person from act enjoined by positive law. The second one is violence is an impulse from without sending to force the agent to act against his will. That's it.
Good day everyone. I am Ahmad Shaif I Janaidi from BSc 2B. Today we are going to talk about the principle of coercion. The principle of coercion is a fundamental concept in various fields including politics, ethics, law, and philosophy. It revolves around the idea of using the force or threat to influence the behavior of others. This report aims to delve into the different dimensions of the principle of coercion, its ethical implications and applications in various spheres, and the debates surrounding it. Coercion involves using force, threats, or intimidation to make someone to do something against their will. It's essentially about the compelling individuals to act in a certain way through external pressure rather than their own volition. This can include physical force, psychological manipulation, or economic leverage. Let's proceed to the dimension of coercion. Okay, number 1, physical coercion. This form of coercion involves the use of physical force or violence to compel someone to act in a certain way. It can include actions such as assault, imprisonment, or physical abuse. Okay, this dimension involves direct physical force or violence, such as assault or imprisonment, to make someone comply. Number 2, we have psychological coercion. Psychological coercion relies on the tactics such as manipulation, blackmail, or psychological pressure to control the behavior of others. This can include threats of harm, emotional manipulation, or coercion through deception. These psychological tactics are used to control behavior. Then number 3, economic coercion occurs when the individual or institutions use financial power or economic threats to influence the action of others. Examples include economic sanctions, withholding resources, or employment-related coercion. It is utilizing financial power or economic threats to influence actions, such as imposing sanctions or withholding resources. Ethical implications. The principle of coercion raises significant ethical concerns, primarily related to autonomy, freedom, and consent. Coercive actions violate the principle of autonomy by depriving individuals of the freedom to make choices without external interference. Furthermore, coercion undermines the concept of voluntary consent, as individuals may comply out of fear or duress rather than genuine agreement. So, coercion violates the principle of autonomy by depriving individuals of their freedom to make choices without external interference. Coercive actions can undermine the concept of voluntary consent, as individuals may comply out of fear rather than genuine agreement. Debates and controversies. The principle of coercion sparks debate regarding its ethical justifiability, particularly in contexts such as paternalism, self-defense, and humanitarian intervention. Some argue that coercion may be justified in certain circumstances, such as protecting individuals from harm or upholding societal stability. Others contend that coercion is inherently unethical and incompatible with the principle of individual freedom and human rights. There's there's debate over whether coercion is ever justified, with some arguing for its necessity in maintaining order or preventing harm, while others see it as fundamentally unethical. Coercion may be justified in cases of protecting individuals from harm or defending against aggression, but determining where the line is drawn can be contentious. Coercion may be used in humanitarian crises to prevent atrocities, but there is debate over the legitimacy of intervening in other nations. That's all. Thank you.
So, yun, magandang araw sa ating lahat. So, ako nga pala si Norjamir Ong and ang i-discuss ko ngayon ay violence and habits. So, bago ko ipagpatuloy yung discussion ko is alamin muna natin kung ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng violence pati ng habits. So, violence, it is an act of physical force that causes or is intended to cause a harm. So, yun na nga, no? So, based nga sa definition, so, violence, so, ito nga yung mga bagay na nagagawa natin na nagkukos ng harm sa ating sarili at pati na rin sa ating kapwa. So, maraming klase ng violence. So, mayroon ding emotional violence, which is yung emotional abuse or psychological, or yung most common is yung physical violence. So, the next one is the habit. So, habit is the usual way of behaving or something that a person do, often in a regular or repeated way. So, based on its description class or so it is ito yung mga bagay-bagay na palagyan natin ginagawa sa araw-araw nating pamumuhay. For example is kada araw is nagbabasa ka ng one page a day. So, matatawag mo yun na habit, yung pagbabasa mo ng one page a day. So, pumunta naman tayo sa principles of habit and violence. So, first is the principle of passive violence can be stated briefly and is self-explanatory. So, based sa principle ng passive violence, so ito yung mga bagay-bagay na nagagawa natin na kumbaga wala na tayong pakialam kung may masasaktan ba or kung anong epekto nito sa atin o sa kapwa natin. Dahil na rin siguro sa ating dahil na rin sa ating pangangailangan. So next is acts done owing to violence. Example, acts one does because one is forced against his will to do, are not voluntary provided that due resistance is made. Consequently, the doer is not morally responsible for doing such acts. So, ito daw yung mga bagay na nagagawa natin dahil sa karahasan or na kung saan kahit ayaw man natin or ayaw man natin gawin ay nagagawa natin dahil mayroong forced violence na nagaganap sa atin. So, yung mga kilos daw yun na nagagawa natin ay hindi matatawag na voluntarily sapagkat mayroong resist or against tayo dun sa mga bagay na ginagawa natin or nagagawa natin or tumututol tayo. Ngunit nagagawa lang natin yun sapagkat yun nga may forced violence na involved doon. So, consequently, the doer is not morally responsible for doing such acts. So, ibig sabihin or dahil dito hindi ka responsable sa mga bagay na ginagawa mo sapagkat ayaw mo naman talagang gawin yun, ngunit napipilitan ka lang sapagkat nga paulit-ulit yung sinasabi is mayroong involved na forced violence, kaya mo lang nagagawa yung mga kilos o yung mga bagay na iyon. So ang example nito is based on reality. So ang pinaka-best example nito is yung online sex cyber bullying, na kung saan ang karaniwang mga biktima dito ay ang mga estudyante. Nang dahil na rin sa kanilang pangangailangan o para matustusan ang kanilang pangangailangan sa kanilang pag-aaral is nakagawa sila ng mga bagay-bagay na hindi maganda na kung saan kahit ayaw man nilang gawin ay napipilitan sila para maitawid o para matustusan lang yung kanilang pangangailangan. So the next one is the moral principle governing acts done by force of habit reads. So acts done by force of habit are still voluntarily, at least in cause, as long as the habit is allowed to stay. So ang ibig sabihin naman nito ay ito yung mga bagay-bagay na ginagawa natin or pinipilit natin yung sarili natin na gawin sapagkat mayroon tayong gustong abutin or mayroon tayong goal or purpose kung bakit natin ginagawa ito. And it is still voluntarily. So isa sa mga halimbawa nito is gusto mong pumayat, then para pumayat ka is kailangan mo mag-diet and mag-exercise araw-araw. So labag man sa kalooban mo na mag-diet or hindi kumain or disiplinahin yung sarili mo sa pagkain and mag-exercise ka daily, is kailangan mong gawin yun sapagkat yun nga may purpose ka or may goal ka sa kung bakit mo ginagawa yung isang bagay na iyon. And voluntary mo siyang ginagawa. Walang involved na ibang party kundi yung sarili mo lang. So the next one is the explanation of the two principles. So move on tayo kay principle ni violence and habits. So number 1 is when we are forced to do things or acts entirely against our will, then obviously our acts are not voluntary and hence we are not responsible therefore, provided due resistance is made. So the resistance should be present throughout the whole act. Lack of will or effort, adequate resistance, and disapproval may render the act voluntarily, albeit minimally. So, meaning naman ito guys, pag yung mga bagay daw o yung mga kilos daw na nagagawa natin dahil napipilitan tayo or may pumipilit sa atin, kahit labag man sa ating kalooban, ay obviously hindi siya matatawag na voluntary sapagkat ayaw nga natin gawin. Pero yun nga, napipilitan lang tayo sapagkat gaya ng sabi ko kanina, maybe pag di natin ginawa is may something bad happen to us. And then matatawag naman daw na voluntary yung bagay na iyon pag wala tayong pagtutol or disapproval sa bagay na iyon na gagawin natin or kilos na gagawin natin. So number 2, reacts done by force of habit, there is still voluntariness on the part of the doer and he is responsible for the same if he will fully develop the habit and makes no effort to overcome the same. Whatever therefore flows or follows from the habit which the doer initially entertained and allowed to become a part of him is still voluntary on the part of the doer. So ang ibig sabihin naman nito is gaya na example kanina sa exercise. So pag ginawa natin yung bagay-bagay ng paulit-ulit is sa una is nahihirapan tayo, which is nandun pa yung si force habit na kung saan pinipilit pa natin yung sarili natin na gawin yung bagay na iyon sapagkat based nga sa principle kanina is mayroon tayong purpose bakit natin ginagawa iyon. Then sa katagalan na is parang nasasanay na tayo na ginagawa na natin yun siya palagi. And doon na pumapasok si habit na kung saan wala nang force habit na nangyayari or hindi na natin pinipilit or hindi na tayo napipilitan yung na gawin yung isang bagay sapagkat nasanay na tayo or nakasanayan na natin or naging habit na natin yun. And hanggang dyan lang po yung report ko and sana po naintindihan nyo, and if may question man po kayo is feel free to PM me or to ask me, and sasagutin ko po sa loob ng aking makakaya. And that's all. Thank you and shukran. Wassalam.